With this sequence, I want to dig into downhill skiing, and particularly some of the things that can occur, whether it's knees or back or SI joint, or a lot of times people can just get really grumpy as they near the end of their ski day because they're starting to get really, really tired. When I've worked with people who have a lot of pain and then they're wanting to return to the slopes and we get them more functional, I share with them some really key features around how to improve so they've got more stamina to get right through to the end of the day if they want to. So with this series, I'm going to be using a block and a strap primarily, and I'm going to start off with the dowel to give you a bit of a sense of the actual skiing. Now, being in the neck of the woods that we are in, there's a lot of downhill skiing. When I was younger, I was a ski racer. I ski a lot, and a lot of my clients who are over in Europe, they also ski quite a bit as well. So there's a lot of practice that I've had working to help people get back, not only to downhill skiing, but also improving how they feel through the day with their skiing. So a big piece of it is that downhill skiing really requires this kind of action. And if you are on the gondola or you're on a chairlift and you're looking down at the skiers, what you'll see more of is this. And when you're doing this, you're not absorbing the load really, really well. And so if you can start to get the mechanics of this a little bit better, you're going to find yourself having a greater endurance overall. So what I'll ask people to do is with this doweling, like pretending they've got their poles here, they've come off the chairlift and they're cruising, getting ready for their first or second or third run, to just practice this motion of hips, knees, and ankles. And notice what their upper body is doing. Depending on what happened the night before, how tired you are coming into your ski day, you'll get a really good feel of where you're starting out and how you need to start out, whether it's more of an easier run or whether you want to do a harder run. It just gives you a context for where you're beginning. So when I'm working with a client in the actual one-to-one session, I'm having them with some type of prop like this, having them play around with this movement of hips, knees, ankles, so that they're learning how to bring their legs up more towards their upper body, their torso, as opposed to bringing their upper body down towards their legs, right? That's a totally different movement. The other thing that I'm wanting to help practice and create a habit around is in that motion that looks a little bit like chair pose, is to also bring in the support of the outer hips. So when we are here, we're moving in the sagittal plane, we're moving into flexion as we come down into a chair, as we come down into part of that skier's position. And then what I want to help build is this outer hip strength, because the outer hips are providing both an abductor and a rotator, transverse plane and a frontal plane relationship, which helps maintain the head of the femur in the socket. So when those are working well, the transverse rotator muscles and the abductor frontal plane muscles, when those are working well, then we often have better connection between the hip, the knee, and the ankle. And it enables our flexion and extension muscles to work a lot better on the hill. So to enable that, I help people come into a chair pose, and then from this set position, I'm in a static position now, I ask them to move their legs out wide. So if you think about an XY axis, this was Y coming down in the sagittal plane, and now we're going along X, which is a combination of rotation and abduction, right? Because we've got some fibers of the rotators and we've got a little bit of abduction happening as we go wide. And what I ask them to do is to place their hands right in the front of their hips here, and as they're pushing wide, to not feel their hip flexors engaging anymore. Right? So they're in hip flexion, yes, but now the leg bones are moving out this way, so we don't need extraneous hip flexor activity to now push wide. What's also cool about doing this movement is if you look down at your feet, especially if you're someone who tends to overpronate, is that as you press your legs wide, you'll see how your arches lift. And it will start to have you recognize the correlation between what goes on at your hips and what goes on at your feet, which is kind of cool. All right, lovely. So now we can drop that away and bring in the block. So do something similar, taking the block between your legs. Now you can take it more narrow if you want, But for me, I find that that brings my stance a little too narrow. I find it a bit more comfortable when I have it wider. So you choose. It's pretty close up to my pubic bone, so I'm in the meat of the ADD, adductors, and then same thing, I come down to a bit of a squat. And I'm just holding the block. I'm not squeezing the bejesus out of it. I'm not trying to squeeze the wood out of it. I'm just holding it here. And it's interesting what the experience can be. Some people find that the strap exercise tends to make them feel lighter. Other people find that it's the block. When I would teach at conferences and we'd have a room of 90 or 100 people, I would ask them to do a strap and block exercise. Half the room would be loving the strap, half the room would be loving the block, and each half would be like, what? Because the other typically just didn't provide as much wow for them. So really play with the one that gives you the most lightness and the most ease, because that's the one you really are needing more of in more support. All right, lovely. Okay, so now bring that up and let that come down. And now just notice what that feels through your legs and your torso. Now from here, we're going to come into a high lunge and just bringing one leg back. So pelvis is square. And then take your arms up into cactus. And then from here, bring the arms out wide and turn the palms to face forward. Now from here, bring the arms a little bit more into extension. So all of this has been arm bone in the shoulder socket. The ribs have not poked forward, nor have they knitted into the upper abdomen. The heel has been pressing back, and you can feel the 3 points on the front foot, ball of the foot, base of the pinky toe, and center of the heel. Good, and then turn the palms down and reach the palms out that way. And then palms down, and then back into cactus. And then bring the palms back, interlace the fingers, reach them back. Lovely, okay, now come back. And let's come to the other side. So now we're here. High lunge, and then into cactus. And then arms out to the side. Arms extend back through the shoulder joint. Heel is still pressing back. Feel the bottom of the feet. Palms down. Extend wrists. Now you can lower the arms if that makes it easier. And then up to cactus. And then bring the arms back, interlacing the fingers. Lovely, okay, and then come back up. Alrighty, now notice what you feel. The idea is we're wanting to enable a sense of lightness between your pelvis and your shoulder girdle so you don't feel so smushed. And a lot of that comes from some solid function between your hips and your feet, so through your legs, but really thinking about your pelvis as being the platform through which your legs are moving. And it's also a platform for your upper body to sit upon. So we don't want this kind of slumping, that's an obvious slump, but also we don't want a smushing through the spine, nor do we want to be having to hold ourselves so rigid to lift ourselves up, because that's really, really, really inefficient. So take the legs wide now, and then rotate the leg bones, and start to lower down, bringing the hands to the outside of the thighs, pressing them that way. So thinking about that strap that was around your legs, but now you've got your hands here to press into. And you can be here, as you build stamina, you can be here for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. You really can practice and play with this and just explore what it's like to be here for minutes at a time. Notice where it is that you want to build tension. Notice where it is you want to hold your breath. And then can you enable yourself to be here with more and more ease? Yeah? And so initially when I'm working with someone, it's just maybe 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And then as we go, we keep building it, but we also lower down. But we're not lowering down to a point where there's any knee issues or knee crepitus or the knees want to fall inward. We're only moving down as far as the form and the function are supportive. And then we can kind of keep coming down and keep coming down and keep coming down and keep coming down. And then play around with maintaining this position. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, right? And they start to build that. Obviously not right away. We're not going to do that here in this video. But you get a sense of what can be possible. Good. And then come on up. And then you can even come right into a squat. Right? And if you want, you can place your elbows where mine are here, just to provide a little bit of support while you're feeling the center of the heel, ball of the foot, and base of the pinky toe. Now, of course, this is going to depend on your knees. This is not necessarily a great one if your knees are saying, wait a second. So you could always be a bit higher and place a block there. You can also sit in a chair with your legs wide. But the idea here is you're helping to cultivate this movement between your legs and your hips with some ease in the upper body, right? So the upper body is not doing the work here. It's light as a result of the work we've been doing in the limbs, like the legs and the pelvis and the butt, all the way down to the feet. So when you're on your skis, you can feel the snow against the ski and against the bottom of your foot. And you can feel that rhythm, right? That natural nature rhythm as you are out there on the slope. All right, so now coming from here, and let's come into a gateway. So coming over into a side bend. Now the reason I'm including this is because, again, so much of the skiing has us moving in the sagittal plane. And these side muscles can become, they can get fatigued because they're helping support the work of flexion and extension. But if then we're not doing good flexion and extension and we're doing more swooshing, then they're going to become a little bit more limited, right? They might feel like they're getting a bit tired or tight. So being able to gain a little bit more suppleness through here will be really, really important. Perfect. Okay, and then come back up. Let's come down onto the floor. And let's get your legs, crossing them over like so, and bringing them up towards your belly. And then the other side. And while you're doing this, you feel your sacrum and your pelvis on the floor, right? So the pelvis is not coming off of the floor. And if you want to play with this a little bit further, you can take it into happy baby. So now your legs come out and you can grab hold of your shin and just, your pelvis is still exactly where it is. You're not airing out the bottom of your pelvis. It's still there, and you grab hold of whatever it is you can reach, and then allow for those legs to come down towards the floor. You don't have to reach your your foot, unless you can easily do it, right? So it's not about reaching way up, it's right like so. Which then can lead us into bringing the legs straight up, crossing an ankle and bringing that leg down toward, that ankle down towards the knee. And then you're here into thread the needle or figure 4. But again, that pelvis is easily on that floor. And then the legs come back up again. Be really mindful of what your pelvis is doing, that this is all leg bone motion in the pelvis. Really, really nice. And then bring the legs back down. Good. And then ankle comes off the knee. Now, take those legs wide into a butterfly position. So you're rotating the legs out and then bringing them back in. Rotating them out and bringing them back in. So you're coming onto the outside edges of your feet, but not Baddha Konasana where you're sliding them in. That's just a different exercise. You can certainly include that in here, but that's not what we're doing here right now. And then stretch one leg out in front and then bring the other one up. And let's come into a supine twist, bringing that leg across your body, shoulders on the ground. And then back up. And then other side. Skiing can be a really amazing activity when we are aware of how our body is moving and we have clarity over what's really working and not working for us, so that we can choose our interventions either before we get out on the hill or after, sort of like an après-ski, but yoga-wise, and after to get us ready for the next day. So then you can use less Advil and really just enjoy the exercise and activity that comes from this thing called skiing. And really enjoy that being out there in the snow. Lovely. Okay, so you can slide back here and be here for as long as you would like. And if you find that you've got gumption to do anything more, then by all means add to it. Just take a moment and feel what that feels like. And then notice how that transpires when you're out on the slope, whether you're doing those green runs, blue runs, triple diamond runs. Enjoy your skiing. Enjoy your body. We'll see you tomorrow.